Hebrews chapter 11 is often called the Hall of Faith. Hebrews 11:1. Like a grand tapestry, it weaves together stories of men and women who believed in God's promises. Hebrews 11:13. These were ordinary people who trusted in an extraordinary God. Hebrews 11:6. Their lives speak powerfully to us today. Hebrews 11:4. This chapter is a source of encouragement for every believer. Hebrews 11:39-40. Their faith was an ongoing journey. Hebrews 11:8. They faced doubts and fears but clung to God's faithfulness. Hebrews 11:27. What made them stand out was their unwavering faith. Hebrews 11:33-34. Faith is the substance of things hoped for, the evidence of things not seen. Hebrews 11:1. It's the assurance that God will deliver. Hebrews 11:11. This chapter testifies to faith's power to transform lives. Hebrews 11:33-34. Let their stories ignite a spark within us. Hebrews 11:32. Be inspired to live with unwavering trust and obedience. Hebrews 11:6. The opening verses of Hebrews 11 introduce us to Abel, Enoch, and Noah, three early figures of faith. Abel offered a more acceptable sacrifice to God than Cain, demonstrating his faith. By faith, Abel offered unto God a more excellent sacrifice than Cain. Hebrews 11:4. His act of faith cost him his life, yet his story speaks volumes about prioritizing God. Enoch walked with God and was taken away by him, showing intimate fellowship with the Creator. By faith, Enoch was translated that he should not see death. Hebrews 11:5. Noah, a righteous man, believed God's warning of a flood and built an ark, a tangible expression of his trust in God's promise. By faith, Noah, being warned of God of things not seen as yet, moved with fear, prepared an ark to the saving of his house. Hebrews 11:7. Noah's story highlights obedience even when God's instructions seem impractical. These early heroes of faith chose to trust and obey God's word. Their stories remind us that faith requires action, and that obedience to God is always met with his blessing. Abraham, often referred to as the father of faith, is a central figure in Hebrews 11. By faith, Abraham, when he was called to go out into a place which he should after receive for an inheritance, obeyed, and he went out not knowing whither he went. Hebrews 11:8. Called by God to leave his homeland and journey to an unknown land, Abraham obeyed without hesitation. By faith he sojourned in the land of promise, as in a strange country, dwelling in tabernacles with Isaac and Jacob, the heirs with him of the same promise. Hebrews 11:9. He believed God's promise that he would become the father of a great nation, even though he and his wife Sarah were old and childless. Through faith also Sarah herself received strength to conceive seed, and was delivered of a child when she was past age, because she judged him faithful who had promised. Hebrews 11:11. Sarah too exhibited remarkable faith. Despite her old age, she believed God's promise that she would bear a son. Her laughter, initially born out of disbelief, transformed into a testament to God's faithfulness when she gave birth to Isaac. Therefore sprang there even of one, and him as good as dead, so many as the stars of the sky in multitude, and as the sand which is by the seashore innumerable. Hebrews 11:12. Isaac, Jacob, and Joseph, the descendants of Abraham, also walked by faith. By faith Isaac blessed Jacob and Esau concerning things to come. Hebrews 11:20. By faith Jacob, when he was dying, blessed both the sons of Joseph and worshipped, leaning upon the top of his staff. Hebrews 11:21. By faith Joseph, when he died, made mention of the departing of the children of Israel and gave commandment concerning his bones. Hebrews 11:22. They faced trials, betrayals, and uncertainties, yet they clung to the promises God had made to their forefathers. Each generation passed on the torch of faith, demonstrating that God's faithfulness extends to thousands of generations. And these all, having obtained a good report through faith, received not the promise, God having provided some better thing for us, that they without us should not be made perfect. Hebrews 11:39-40. The lives of these patriarchs and their families remind us that faith is a journey that spans generations. It's about trusting God's promises, even when we can't see the fulfillment in our lifetime. Their stories encourage us to live with an eternal perspective, knowing that God is working out his purposes in his perfect timing. Section 4, From Egypt to Canaan, Deliverance and the Crimson Cord of Hope. Moses, another towering figure of faith, features prominently in Hebrews 11. Hebrews 11:23-29. He refused to be called the son of Pharaoh's daughter, choosing instead to identify with the Israelites, God's chosen people. Hebrews 11:24-25. By faith, he led them out of slavery in Egypt, parting the Red Sea and receiving the 10 Commandments on Mount Sinai. Hebrews 11:29, Exodus 14:21, 22, Exodus 21:17. Rahab, a prostitute in Jericho, also plays a significant role in this chapter. Hebrews 11:31. Despite her past, she believed in the God of Israel and helped the Israelite spies, hiding them from the king's men. Joshua 2:1-4. Her act of faith saved her and her family when Jericho fell. Joshua 6:25. These stories highlight God's power to use anyone regardless of their background or past mistakes. 1 Corinthians 1:27-29. Moses, raised in Pharaoh's palace, and Rahab, a woman living on the fringes of society, both experienced God's deliverance and became instruments in his plan. Exodus 2:10, Joshua 2:1. Their stories remind us that faith is not limited by social status, past mistakes, or present circumstances. Galatians 3:28. God sees the heart, and he is able to use anyone who is willing to trust and obey him. 1 Samuel 16:7. Section 5, Echoes of Faith, Unseen Victories, and the Perseverance of Saints. Hebrews 11 goes on to list many other heroes of faith, some known only by name. And what shall I more say? For the time would fail me to tell of Gideon, and of Barak, and of Samson, and of Jephthah, of David also, and Samuel, and of the prophets. Hebrews 11:32. Gideon, Barak, Samson, Jephthah, David, Samuel, and the prophets all played their part in God's story. Who through faith subdued kingdoms, wrought righteousness, obtained promises, stopped the mouths of lions. Hebrews 11:33. They faced giants, conquered kingdoms, and spoke truth to power, all because they believed in a God who was bigger than their circumstances. Quenched the violence of fire, escaped the edge of the sword, out of weakness were made strong, waxed valiant in fight, turned to flight the armies of the aliens. Hebrews 11:34. The chapter also acknowledges those who suffered persecution and martyrdom for their faith. They were tortured, imprisoned, and others had trial of cruel mockings and scourgings, yea, moreover, of bonds and imprisonment. Hebrews 11:36. And put to death, yet they remained steadfast in their belief. They were stoned, they were sawn asunder, were tempted, were slain with the sword. They wandered about in sheepskins and goatskins, being destitute, afflicted, tormented. Hebrews 11:37. They understood that this life is temporary, and they looked forward to a better resurrection. Women received their dead raised to life again, and others were tortured, not accepting deliverance, that they might obtain a better resurrection. Hebrews 11:35. These stories, though often brief, paint a powerful picture of the perseverance of the saints. They faced unimaginable trials, yet their faith never wavered. Of whom the world was not worthy. They wandered in deserts and in mountains and in dens and caves of the earth. Hebrews 11:38. They held on to the hope of a future reward, knowing that their suffering was temporary. And these all, having obtained a good report through faith, received not the promise. Hebrews 11:39. Section 6, Living by Faith, Not by Sight, Embracing the Substance of Hope. Hebrews 11 verse 1 tells us that faith is the substance of things hoped for, the evidence of things not seen. This means that faith gives substance to our hope, making it real and tangible. It's the confident assurance that what God has promised, he will deliver, even if we don't see it yet. Romans 8:24-25. The heroes of faith in this chapter lived their lives based on this principle. They didn't rely on what they could see or understand. They trusted in God's word and his promises. 2 Corinthians 5:7. They understood that true faith involves stepping out in obedience, even when the way forward is unclear. Hebrews 11:8. Living by faith, not by sight, requires us to shift our focus from our circumstances to God's character. 2 Corinthians 4:18. It's about choosing to believe God's promises over our doubts and fears. Isaiah 41:10. It's about trusting that he is working all things together for good, even when we can't see the bigger picture. Romans 8:28. Section 7. A cloud of witnesses. Their legacy, our inspiration. Hebrews 12 verse 1 encourages us to run with perseverance the race marked out for us. Wherefore, seeing we also are compassed about with so great a cloud of witnesses, let us lay aside every weight and the sin which doth so easily beset us, and let us run with patience the race that is set before us. Hebrews 12:1. Fixing our eyes on Jesus, the pioneer and perfecter of faith. Looking unto Jesus, the author and finisher of our faith. Hebrews 12:2. The heroes of faith in Hebrews 11 are like a cloud of witnesses cheering us on in our own race of faith. Now faith is the substance of things hoped for, the evidence of things not seen. Hebrews 11:1. Their stories remind us that we are not alone in our struggles. These all died in faith, not having received the promises, but having seen them afar off, and were persuaded of them, and embraced them, and confessed that they were strangers and pilgrims on the earth. Hebrews 11:13. They faced doubts, fears, and trials just like we do, yet they remained faithful. And what shall I more say? For the time would fail me to tell of Gideon, and of Barak, and of Samson, and of Jephthah, of David also, and Samuel, and of the prophets. Hebrews 11:32. Their lives inspire us to live with courage, boldness, and an unwavering trust in God, who through faith subdued kingdoms, wrought righteousness, obtained promises, stopped the mouths of lions. Hebrews 11:33. As we face the challenges and uncertainties of life, let us draw strength and encouragement from the hall of faith. And these all, having obtained a good report through faith, received not the promise. Hebrews 11:39. Let their stories ignite within us a passion to live lives that honor God and leave a lasting legacy for generations to come. God having provided some better thing for us, that they without us should not be made perfect. Hebrews 11:40.